Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. This is Pastor Jeff Short. Glad to have you along for our discussion today, where we look at cultural issues from a biblical perspective. Today, I have to say, I have a warning to parents because there is now a new threat on the horizon in raising godly Christian children, and that is a software device called ChatGPT. Now, what is ChatGPT? It's a website where you can go to and enter in a question, and it will pop up, the answer will pop up, or you can enter in an assignment. You can say, write a book report on Profiles in Courage, for example, and it will simply begin immediately to write a book report. Or you can ask it to write code for a specific program on the computer. It actually will do things also like you can type in, write a rap song in the style of Eminem on going to church on Sunday. And it will produce a verse and many different verses and a chorus, and it will produce a rap song. This thing is supposedly machine learning it's called, and it's the next step in the so-called quest for artificial intelligence. Well, high school and junior high and even college students, especially college students, are now tapping into this, and there's a problem now at the university level where students are simply assigning a book report to ChatGPT, and they're having this entire thing written for them by the computer. The AI, the artificial intelligence, is writing the report. They can choose a topic. For example, in college, many of you have gone to college. You'll know that there are assignments, and maybe assignment is write a topic on the historical period of the 1700s in America, write on some topic that deals with colonial life in the United States, or before it became the United States, colonial America. And so you can go to ChatGPT and write in to the keyboard, please generate a 10-page paper on the Boston Tea Party. And it will write the entire report on the Boston Tea Party. It's just another distraction. It's another temptation for children growing up in the age of the internet, the information age. And so parents have to be aware of this, that there will be problems that come up, especially, for example, if they begin to ask it more deeper theological and philosophical questions. For example, the Daily Wire ran a segment where Ben Shapiro, the political commentator, asked ChatGPT, does God exist? And it produced a paragraph saying that people debate whether there is the existence of God or is all there is nature. And then he wrote in, well, who created everything? And again, ChatGPT wrote a paragraph describing where there are some that believe in the existence of a higher intelligence, but other people believe that nature itself can account for all of the creative design in the world, and so on and so forth. So in other words, this ChatGPT is not strictly or totally AI. It's also a combination of what the programmers have programmed into it. So it's a combination of human and artificial intelligence. And so when you ask it questions, it seems to come at it from a very liberal, leftist, socialist-leaning, progressivist, so-called democratic perspective. So, and that reflects the people who are working on this project out in Silicon Valley, people who are pioneering artificial intelligence in the technology world. They are almost decidedly entirely leftists, progressives, socialist-leaning people. And so you're going to get the AI reflecting that bias. And so this is another temptation for children, especially junior high and high school, when they begin to be assigned writing assignments. They can go to this ChatGPT on their computer at home and quickly spit out a 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever length that they put in there. If they want a 100-page paper on the causes of the Declaration of Independence, this ChatGPT can just spit out an entire essay on that subject. And then the student can basically print that out and sort of modify it and tweak it and make sure that there aren't any glaring errors in it, because sometimes the artificial intelligence, the computer, generates some nonsensical statements. So it has to be overseen by a human. But once that's done, the student can submit that paper, and it's very difficult for a teacher to even know that the student did not generate this himself from his own mind, except for the fact that ChatGPT has perfect grammar and syntax, and this student at that level, say junior high or even high school, would probably not have that great a command of the English language already, and so that might be a trigger excuse me, for the teacher to know that this is not a student-written paper. This is written by ChatGPT. Now, the New York public schools, New York City, have banned the use of ChatGPT, but you can be sure that there are students who are going to try to get around that, and it is possible to get around it to the point where it's almost impossible to tell whether this has been computer-generated or generated by a person who maybe had somebody check the spelling and the grammar beforehand. So, and there are also programs that will check grammar and spelling and syntax, and so they can also have that done on a paper that they wrote by themselves. So it's going to be very, very hard for students to resist the temptation to turn to some of these AI so-called programs for essentially cheating on assignments. Now, this ChatGPT was also put to the test with the Wharton School of Economics, and it was able to pass the exam, final exam for a MBA at this prestigious business school. So again, this is a level of sophistication that we haven't seen in machines ever before. And not only does it answer questions, now we're all used to for example, Echo Dot device that we see in homes all over the country, where you ask the Echo Dot questions and it will answer them based on the internet. And so if you want factual information, this is great for factual information. For example, what is the capital of Alaska? Or what year did the Revolutionary War start? And so on and so forth. You can get these answers very quickly from these home devices like Echo Dot, or Google has something like that also. But this goes way beyond that, because this actually can write out entire papers and can do entire book reviews. You can ask, say, the assignment at school is to write a book review on the late President John F. Kennedy's book, Profiles in Courage. Well, you just type into ChatGPT, write a book review for the book Profiles in Courage, and this thing will spit out however detailed you want it to be, a 3-page summary of the book, a 5-page book report. It'll just go as detailed as you want it. And it will also do things like give you, for example, car repair shops can use this in diagnosing cars. You can enter into the car, what is the problem with a 1999 Ford Bronco that has black smoke coming out of the exhaust pipe? And it will give you all kinds of diagnostic possibilities for this thing. And it will actually, based on its knowledge base, help you diagnose the problem with that car. It's incredible. It will also give you detailed instructions, for example, how to remove a bullet. Say some gangbanger was in a fight with another gang and got shot in the arm, and the bullet is still in there. You could type into ChatGPT, how do you remove a bullet from your left arm at the elbow? And that ChatGPT will actually, based on its knowledge base, it's got a vast knowledge base, it will actually give a detailed instructions how to remove a bullet from someone's arm, including first sterilize the arm with alcohol or alcohol swabs, then make an incision where the bullet entered, sterilize forceps, and it will give you everything you need to know to do an operation. And it's incredible. It is totally and utterly new. We haven't ever seen anything like this before. And this is just another temptation for school children in their educational experience, because now they are going to be tempted to lean on computers even more than they were. And there was widespread cheating because of the internet, because of sources. People could actually write your own papers. You could hire them via the internet. You could also go to sources on the internet and copy and paste large sections of already existing material onto your assigned essay. You could do all kinds of research on the internet instead of going to the library and actually consulting the primary sources. There were all kinds of temptations even before ChatGPT, but now with ChatGPT, it not only has access to a vast knowledge base where you could draw from to get information for your paper, it will actually write your paper. And this is some kind of a temptation that has never existed before at junior high, high school, college level for students, except for the very, very elite who could always have and hire people and pay a lot of money to have them write essays for them, or even, if they could get away with it, take tests, because that has been known to happen where you actually have a rich kid hire someone to go in and pass as themselves and sit down for their ACT test or SAT test or whatever the testing is, LSAT, law, SAT, and all kinds of other academic tests. This was happening on the elite level, but never at a possibility like this ChatGPT. So this is going to be something that parents need to be aware of and say, look, how are we going to react? And what we know now about ChatGPT is that it, like I said before, it is biased in a very secular, leftist, liberal direction. So you are not only going to get papers being written, but they're going to be written from a more radical leftist perspective and not from a more traditional or Judeo-Christian heritage perspective. Students will rely on this and turn to this thing, and it will give them basically progressive ideas. And if they simply follow along with these ideas, if they simply go along and get along for the sake of the benefits that this offers, they're going to be indoctrinated into leftism, the radical left. So this is something that parents need to be aware of. Now, I did run into a presentation on the internet where a pastor decided that he would see how sophisticated ChatGPT, this website and program, is in respect to generating sermons. And you know where this is going for. We had a controversy a couple years ago where the newly elected president of the Southern Baptist Convention, was caught plagiarizing sermons from other pastors in the Southern Baptist Convention. And it was a big controversy, and he apologized, and he was exposed as someone who was basically lifting out not only outlines, but specific content from other contemporary church Southern Baptist pastors and using it and passing it off as his own sermon and preaching these in front of his own megachurch crowd on Sunday morning. Well, that's totally unethical. It's totally ungodly. And when God calls a pastor to preach sermons, he calls him to read the text in the Bible and to generate the sermon by himself under the power of the Holy Spirit. That's the whole point of being a local church pastor, because the pastor can apply the truth of this passage better to the local church context than some generic sermon that was written by another pastor. Or even worse, this Southern Baptist pastor was using sermons that were generated by a sermon-generating corporation on the internet. So this service that was being offered on the internet was, you simply ask this company for a high value fee to preach or write a sermon on, for example, baptism. And so this company, I think it's called Doxa, and it will actually write the entire sermon and will send it to you through the email electronically. And of course, you pay the fee of whatever it is, $75 or $100 or $150, depending on how long it is. And it is the creation of the staff of this company. So this Southern Baptist Convention pastor was caught using some of these services to generate his own sermons, which again is an unethical, immoral activity and totally illegit. So he was fishing around for sermons, and instead of sitting down and asking God, how do I address this issue and how do I put it on paper and how do I deliver this on Sunday morning, he was turning to services, either a commercial service, pay to play kind of a thing, or he was just simply ripping off sermons of other pastors that he's heard and using their material word for word, which is just as bad. Now, this pastor online, not connected with this Southern Baptist Convention president's scandal, decided, okay, I'm going to type in an assignment for this new software, ChatGPT, and I'm going to ask it to preach a sermon on Matthew 3, verses 6 through 12, or whatever the passage was. And so he typed in that assignment, and he said, make it about 10 pages long. And so this ChatGPT instantaneously, automatically began generating a sermon, explaining the verse, and then applying the verse. And he said, okay, so I'm going to write a sermon on this section of Scripture, and then I'm going to ask ChatGPT to generate two separate sermons on it. And then we're going to compare the sermons, and he was going to read aloud all three sermons and see if his listeners, viewers, could tell the difference. And lo and behold, I heard this presentation and I could not tell the difference between the computer-generated sermon on that section of Scripture and this pastor's sermon that he himself wrote, sitting down, doing the traditional sermon preparation method, and versus the computer generation. I could not tell, because the ChatGPT had this vast knowledge base and could throw in cultural references and could throw in factual information about the Bible times and all kinds of other factors too, just as a pastor would who has gone to seminary. So this is scary, that the power of this AI program is able to generate sermons that some lazy-bone pastor could actually use on Sunday morning as his own sermon to preach to his congregation. So it's not just kids that are going to be tempted to take a shortcut and turn to this program to generate their material. This is also they're experimenting with writing novels. When you sit down and you basically type in the plot of this novel and you type in the characters and you basically ask this program to generate a novel based on the basic plot and the basic characters and the settings and the situation. And lo and behold, this thing just goes to town and starts to write an entire novel based on the information parameters that you give it. And they're talking about what's going to become of the record music industry now, when you can ask this program to actually generate rap songs and generate music and songs and lyrics that rhyme. And lo and behold, you just type in the subject and you type in the style of, say, Tchaikovsky, or in the style of Rachmaninoff, the piano player, or in the style of John Philip Sousa, and you ask it to create a song, and it will generate the notes, it'll generate the lyrics, it will do the whole thing. And this is scary about how the future might be influenced by this computer-generated AI program. So we need to be aware of things that are coming at us in the future. A lot of people have apocalyptic ideas about what's going to happen with AI and artificial intelligence, and how, Elon Musk likes to talk in terms of apocalyptic scenarios where he's saying, well, there'll come a point in the future, a singularity, where AI overtakes humanity in its knowledge, and then at that point we might become slaves to artificial intelligence that is in control of the weapons of our nations and the currency, and can go in and wreak havoc on the stock market if it wants to, if it has access to stocks and bonds and prices, and can really sabotage the whole world and can blackmail the world unless we do its bidding, and so on and so forth. And those are probably overblown. But as Christians, we have to be aware of what could possibly take place in the future, and we have to begin to think in terms of how do we respond to this as Christians. Well, I've always thought and speculated that possibly in the book of Revelation, it talks about the beast and the mark of the beast. And I've often speculated, well, what would happen if the beast actually is, or the Antichrist is actually some kind of form of so-called artificial intelligence, and people just give themselves over to this because it's so vastly more intelligent. It can make life better on Earth. It can regulate, for example, the climate. It can regulate prices. It can regulate supplies and demand. It can possibly even govern politically if it's programmed for peace and harmony between nations, and so on and so forth. So all of these things could coalesce into some kind of an entity that, even if it's not actually artificial intelligence, could fool people, could actually talk to people, could give speeches to people, could make decisions like people make decisions, that at first could convince most people that, hey, this is benevolent, this is good, we should just give our political power over to this benevolent program. We should give our economies over to this benevolent program. And perhaps in the book of Revelation, the mark of the beast is actually a mark that's generated by an AI intelligence that has been set up with some one world government situation. And so, again, there's all kinds of speculation scenarios that could be generated, but this is something that as Christians we need to think about, because we might begin to see some of the pictures and the symbols and the signs in the book of Revelation coming to pass in a very, very strange way. And it could be that we are going to live to see some of the scenarios in the book of Revelation actually come to pass. So we have to be willing to think about these things, and we have to be willing to not just go along with the mainstream media narrative or the liberal, leftist, progressive policies that will be assuring us, oh, this is safe and effective. It's been tested by thousands of scientists. You can trust it. Believe us. We're the experts. We've seen that happen already with COVID-19. We've seen that happen with the vaccine, where the government wanted to step in and assure everyone that everything was under control and we know exactly what we're doing and you don't have to worry about anything because everything is under control, and just trust us, trust the experts, trust those in power. And as Christians, we need to say, look, this is a fallen, sinful world. We all have the sin nature that we have to battle. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. We are all prone to wander into sin. So we don't trust people telling us that everything's going to be okay and to just go along with the program. No, we don't trust people because we understand that the world we live in is a fallen world and there is a fallen nature, and that we cannot and should not give our families over to, and especially our children, to a system that is built on lies. And so we need to be very careful about letting our children, for example, play around with things like ChatGPT. I think that as a Christian parent, I would want to be careful that there would be filters in place on computers in the home that would block access to ChatGPT, because we don't want kids having to be tempted with these distractions that we never had when we were kids. When I was growing up, when I was learning how to write essays and do research for papers, I had a library. And they actually, at that time, they had the index cards, and you had to look up the books on the shelves, and you had to take the primary source material and digest it. You had to actually read through it and process it yourself. And then in the process of reading through it and working these things out yourself, you gain knowledge, and then you can reflect that knowledge in your writing, and you can express that knowledge in your writings, and they're your own words. Now, sure, back in the time when I was growing up, people could cheat. They could copy entire sections of articles or magazines or all that kind of thing, but that was known as cheating, and you were punished for it. And you could lose your grade, you could flunk a class, there were penalties for it. But that is so far away from the distractions that kids have today with these smartphones. And most parents, Christian parents especially, before their kids are in the teenage years, definitely, they should not even be having access to the smartphone and the internet because of the temptations and the distractions available. So we need to really think through these issues, not just passively accept everything that technology brings to our front door. And if we do our diligent homework and learn up about these things, then we can be ready to cultivate and educate our kids in the right way. We'll see you back next week. God bless.